Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our conversation today. Ken Coscia here, the Silva Method's lead instructor and training director, with a treat for you. Today, I want to have a conversation with Amy Schneider, who is a fellow Silva Method instructor who I've had the pleasure of knowing for some time. And sit back, take some good notes, because what we're going to explore is how to navigate your relationships with grace, with ease, to improve the quality of the relationships, to maybe attract your ideal mate or friend. How about your children? Very important relationship, is that not? How to navigate the complexities of children from their early developmental stages until adulthood in a way that helps them to bring out their best. Those would be the focus of attention for the most part. We're going to look at relationships. And we're going to explore the Silva tools. So for those of you who are fans of the Silva method, we're thinking of you. There are so many applications. It's really about taking command of your life. Way back when I started in 1971, and when Mr. Silva went public in 66, the intention, primary intention, mission was self-control, self-mind control. People thinking for themselves, not being so easily manipulated, especially with misinformation. People getting to the truth, if you will. Why? So that they could create the life of their design, have more joy in their life, more health, happiness. And Mr. Silva, if he were here today, he was my mentor, my friend. I was a Jose Silva groupie, I admit. True confessions here. I was a 19 years old student at Boston University. And when I took the course, this is not about me. I'll just say that I was really so transformed. I went from flunking out of school to straight A's to controlling headaches without drugs. But something inside it just felt right. It felt like I couldn't think of anything else to do. It's like I found my purpose. And he would be the first to say, and I remind you, and I know Amy would say the same thing, you have all that you need. You're far greater than you realize. You have far more capability. You're whole and complete. Nobody can give you anything other than what? Skills, education, the instruction manual. And that's really what the Silva Method is, a set of step-by-step proven tools that millions, over 10 million people in 111 countries we've been in the program, is probably the most copied, most imitated. And the success is because of you. You've got what you need. So if you're open to listening, getting some instruction, some guidance, and applying, more importantly, what you learn, you're in the right place. So let me say a few things about Amy Schneider. I've known her for easily over 10 years. Excuse me, my head's not really working so mathematically, but I've always admired her. I have worked my primary job. Mr. Silva brought me into the picture in 1984 to work with instructors. So for better than 35 years, it has been me in the leadership role with instructors who are guiding them, mentoring them, working with them, collaborating together. I've traveled the world on behalf of the organization to do graduate programs. I tell you this because I've met countless instructors and I've met so many people who are well intended, beautiful people, kind, loving, generous people. Frankly, though, it's not enough and it's never been enough. You got to have skills. And that's something I really enjoy about this woman, this young woman, Amy Schneider, is that she's well intended, she's definitely authentic, comes from her heart, and she's got skills. And she's always learning. She has reviewed. The difference between me and Amy and fellow instructors is experience. You have done thousands of classes and so on and so forth. But this woman, she embodies the program, she embraces it, and yet she's constantly reviewing, whether it be the graduate advanced program mastery with me, or whether it be the immersion. We used to call it the basic lecture series, and now the immersion of Silva Life and Intuition System. That speaks volumes as far as I'm concerned, because she has a growth mindset. She's always thinking about how she can improve herself and her life, her family, and then bring that to her students to help them do the same. And that to me is invaluable. She also, background wise, happens to be very up with wellness. She was a Lamaze coach and educator. My wife Barbara was also too, so it's kind of a common denominator that we've shared. Her mother, who I got to know, an act of love, introduced Amy when she was, I didn't realize, the age of 9 to Silva and got involved. So this has been so much a part of her life from her young, well, childhood life into her young adult life here now with that and with her family. So without further ado, by the way, Amy's also a certified instructor. She teaches in Atlanta and Western North Carolina, etc. Someone you definitely want to meet. So, Amy, how you doing there? Enough about me. Come in and say hello.
Hello, Ken. Thank you so, so much for having me today and for talking about our passion. I get fired up when I start talking about it, the Silva Method. Um, and I'm really excited to be here today to share my experience and how I have used the tools to navigate um, a lot of things in my life uh, from a very young age after learning the Silva method at 9. And I often tell people that I probably didn't fully realize what I was learning at the time. My mom, uh, it was something I was going to do, and I was excited to do it because it was something she was very interested in. So we shared that, and this this practice has grown and changed so much over the years until the point that I realized it was a core part of who I am and the tools that I lean on without even realizing it. They're automatic at this point, and that led me to become an instructor.
Wow. By the way, Amy and I both, prior to this, well, I made a group myself. When we get on the phone, we talk often, we work together, we collaborate, we share ideas. And so often, hey, let's hop on a quick call. And an hour and a half later, we're still talking. Um, so, folks, I promise you, we want to dive into this deeply. So, something I didn't know about you, Amy, that caught my attention reading over your bio is you met your husband, John, through Silva. Could you explain and expand on that? Because so many people are looking to find their soulmate or a spouse or someone to grow old with or a good friend. Can you elaborate a little bit what you mean by that? What tools you used or how that came about?
So, um, it came about during a time when I was heavily um, intentionally practicing every single day with my Silva tools. I mentioned previously that they're automatic, and they are, and they're what I love about it so much is that they're there and that structure is there to use when we need it, when we find ourselves in new situations. And I actually was living away from home in Colorado, a place I'd always wanted to live. And all of my friends were married. And I was thinking to myself, I very much want to meet someone. I want to have kids. I want to have a family. And, going, you know, all of my friends are married. I've met their friends. You know, I just gave it up. I gave it up to God. And um, about that time, eHarmony was on the scene, and my friends told me, Amy, you should do eHarmony. And I thought, oh no, that's so unconventional. But I did something different, and I thought, hey, what do I have to lose? I was curious. I can always turn it off. So I did. Long story short, I think about a weekend, I told my best friend, no, this is not for me. This feels weird. And she said, Amy, give it a chance. Promise me that you'll be on eHarmony for 3 months. And after that, you can turn it off. And I said, you know what? All right. I really trust her. And so I said, okay, I'm going to use it as, what do I have to lose? Nothing. So I ended up meeting my husband, meeting John over eHarmony before I moved back to Atlanta. Kind of all within this, I actually ended up making the decision to move back to Atlanta. And as we started to get to know each other and then finally met each other, along about that time, we knew that we had something special. And along about that time, I had a dream. And I had a dream, and it contained John and um, a boy of about, we'll say 10 or 11. And I thought, that's interesting. It just kind of stuck out in my mind. And as I got to know him, he let me know that he volunteered and worked with the Boys and Girls Club, and he mentored a boy of about 10 or 11. And so that was information for me. I used it. I keep thinking about that this, you're on the right track. Stay with this relationship. And about a year later, a year after we met exactly, um, we got engaged. And a year after that, we got married, and this is actually our 20th year of knowing each other. We met exactly 20 years ago.
Wow. It's interesting. Amy, uh, I'm thinking out loud with this, because what I hear you saying, I believe I hear you saying, is that you were guided intuitively and you made moves, you made yourself available, you were out there, you were at home sitting by the phone, hoping somebody would find you, call you, or show up at your doorstep, which I know it seems like I'm exaggerating a little bit, but a lot of people seem to do that, especially if they're studying the so-called law of attraction or manifesting. They miss the step of taking action. So am I correct that there's a lot of a lot of intuitive guidance for you, drawing you to him or to the situations that put you in the place to meet John?
Yes, I would say both. And I think one of the biggest things is that I avoided uh, really placing um, meaning, a yes or a no, on anything. I was very open and wasn't really, I of course was attached to the outcome, but I wasn't attached to the outcome. I didn't stress about it. And I think that that is one of the biggest things that can hold us back, is that we avoid releasing it, or we avoid being curious, and instead of saying, what does this make possible, what could this mean for me, we immediately place value on it, and then we either throw it in the trash, or we kind of we force the answer, if you will.
Interesting. The other thing, though, that I'm hearing you saying with respect to that is following your impression. Earlier, though, you said when you're in Colorado, all of your friends who you hang out with were married. Well, we all know there's a saying, and even science backs it up, that by proximity, the people we spend most of our time with, we become like them. So we need to, in a sense, be careful about how we manage our time, who we spend that time with. So here you are, a single woman, clear intention, you want to have a family, you want to meet a significant other and raise that family, and all of your friends are married. I might be stretching it a bit, but that sounds to me like you were modeling people, your friends who you admired. And I truly believe that puts us in a place to more likely to achieve that ourselves. Does that make sense to you, or am I fishing here?
No, well, intuition is like cosmic fishing. You're not fishing. I would say that's absolutely correct. I think sometimes we do it subconsciously, unconsciously without realizing that's what we're doing. And my friends that were out there, they had very loving relationships. I enjoyed being around them. They were enjoyed being around me. Incidentally, two of those friends I had actually grown up with and had gone to high school with in Atlanta and happened to live out there. So we knew each other. And I also very specifically and intentionally really was uh, asked myself this question a lot was, well, if I'm, if I'm meant to get married, wonderful. If I'm meant to grow and learn and stay single, I'm okay with that too, because I'm okay with who I am. I love who I am and I know who I am. And I think that that also helped in that way as well.
Well, thank you for sharing that because, uh, folks, listen closely. She wasn't addicted to the outcome. She had it as a preference, meaning, I prefer this, this is what I want, and if it's not meant to be, I'm okay with that. And I say that that's a really important, not just in relationships, for building your business, for your health, for your well-being. Science is teaching us now that the number one reason why people are not getting what they want, not creating what they want, or dare I say, manifesting, is because they're in survival. They're in survival. Desperation comes from survival. When we're addicted to the outcome, we just have to have it. And there's a big difference between a preference or a passion and obsession. And if you've been following me, I brought this up a lot because knowing Amy too, what you haven't said is you're using the tools. You're meditating regularly. You're keeping yourself centered and balanced. So therefore, you're managing your energy to stay out of survival or desperation mode, which then it's kind of like you become almost like a magnet and you're more likely to attract what your intentions are. How does that sound to you, Amy? Am I correctly observing?
That sounds spot on. You are absolutely correctly observing. Um, Also, when my husband and I went on our first date, it was essentially a blind date. And even though we had been talking over phone and email for a while, and one of when you have a goal, you've got to be clear on the goal. So you know what you want, what you don't want. And one of the things that I really was focused on was, hey, I'm at this point in my life and I don't want to, go back and forth and play games. And I remember very specifically that after we were done, we had dinner or lunch, actually brunch rather. And after brunch, he turned to me and he said, well, I've had a really great time and I'd like to see you again. So when can we do that? And just totally kind of caught me, completely speechless, which is hard to do sometimes. And that was a meaningful coincidence of, hey, he doesn't want these games either. This is awesome. And so I said, absolutely, let's figure it out. So, and as we have grown together over the years, that's one of the things that we appreciate the most about each other is that, we don't go back and forth. We say what we mean, and work together even when we disagree. So,
It sounds like a meaningful synchronicity. You are clear about what you want. First step is you need to be clear about your intention, what it is you want. And then you're hearing him mirroring to you almost word for word what you're thinking, what you're expressing to yourself, which was also feedback.
exactly.
Fascinating. One last question, and then we'll give John a rest. The As you look back, was there a specific tool or technique that you used, like, I don't know, mirror the mind or whatever, toward this? Or was it more general?
I would actually say both. Definitely Mirror of the Mind. I was using a lot of Mirror of the Mind at the time, and always at nighttime. And that was actually before I that was back in 2005. So before I upgraded in 2015, and now we have, holo viewing. So I was doing holo viewing without realizing it. Um, I would always do it at night because that was my key time to do it, because I was able to, if I was worried about something, then that was a way to direct the energy, manage my energy, focus on what it was that I did want, and then I'd go to sleep. You automatically release it when that happens. So, um, a lot of Mirror of the Mind, and then a lot of um, what I talk so much about in my class. I know you do yours as well, but that desire, belief, and expectancy, those energies that really are I like to say, the gas that drives the bus. And sometimes people may find, oh my goodness, all I had to do was think about it. And all of a sudden I got the answer, someone called. And that's, that's everything in a nutshell. But then we've got the structure that we can do to really manage our energy, to control, especially when we find ourselves in worry. And so it was both. It was, really looking to what it is I wanted. I was focusing on what I wanted, not necessarily what I didn't want. And so
And
a lot of that.
there's a lot of takeaways there, folks, that you're listening there. Doing it at night, in terms of the tool, the technique, and managing it. When we do something like that during the day, it can do any time, being clear, visualizing, mentally rehearsing the ideal. Best time, though, is at night before sleep. As Amy said, she now knows and understands. You're releasing it. You can't think of, you're not thinking about it, and you're not going to worry and dig it up, because worry, self-doubt, is like a disease. It digs it up. It's like a weed in your garden. And the more weeds that are there in the garden, it's not going to take root. So doing it at night, one, also letting it go. Amy is very much a faith-based person. And she mentioned a technique that we use called holoviewing, is part of in the Silva Method, whether you want to call it, we know we're all energy, made of energy at the smallest part, universe, God, source, higher intelligence, authentic self, that you and I are just a small part of something more. And when we're in alignment, that's when things happen. And I know I said one last question. However, I think this is an important takeaway too, because what I hear you saying, Amy, and I hope John will be okay that we made him center of attention of our conversation, is that I'm guessing you also, being the kind of woman you are, knowing clear about who you are and what you have to offer in a relationship. And I say this because it comes up in every seminar, in every immersion that I do, and I'm sure the same for you and our fellow instructors, is people are looking for someone to grow old with. People are looking for someone to have a significant relationship with. And one mistake is when people go in, again, desperation mode, like, gimme, 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 I want this, I want that. This is my ideal person. These are the qualities I'm looking for. That's very different than saying, this is who I am. These are my qualities. These are my values. This is what I have to offer. And that's what we're bringing. So we're considering the second person, their point of view. Why would anyone want to date you, marry you, work with you, be in business with you? It's a very important consideration when you're using something like Mirror the Mind to include the benefits, not just to ourselves, of course that's important, but also to anyone who's involved. How does that sound to you, Amy? Um, would you say that that's kind of how you were when back then? Can you remember that far back?
Exactly. Yes, I can remember that far back, because it stands in my mind. There's very very specific points with my intuition throughout my life that really stand out. And because we met in the way that we did, because I kept getting those intuitive breadcrumbs throughout that, it made it it made it uh, much more of an impression in my mind. And so, um, you know, it really is. I knew who I was. I also was very specific in thinking in my mind in the picture that I created that this person that I meet has to be willing and open to accept me for who I am, and instead of changing for each other, which I think that in a lot of I am definitely not a relationship expert. However, I think in a lot of relationships, you do have, you grow together, and in some cases, you do, change a little bit, but at our core, we're that same person that we were when we met. And that has to be, that has to be enough. And it has. So we definitely have our, have our disagreements and whatnot. However, we have that mutual respect to always work it out. And I think too that in knowing how we met and following those intuitive breadcrumbs, that hey, I'm going to continue to pour love in, to pour work in, because we've gotten this far with everything that has presented itself.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Uh, Still, another takeaway. Again, it could be with a coworker. It could be with your children. It could be with uh, your boss. We're all in relationship with people, generally speaking. And what I hear Amy saying again is that I'm no relationship expert either. But I do know that we need to embrace not only ourselves, but if we're in relationship with someone, to embrace their idiosyncrasies. Can I live with this? I'm not saying that we should put up with something horrible or abuse, but people are people, and we have no right to change them. And in all the years I've known Amy, I've never gotten the feeling or the sense that she's attempted to change her spouse, John in this instance, or me, or anyone she's in relationship with. It's embracing people for what they are. However, if we feel it doesn't serve us, we're not in alignment, of course, we'll move on. But that's the gist of it. And also, you act on your impressions. I've heard you say this repeatedly as we're talking here together, Amy. You got these little breadcrumbs of feeling, and then you acted on it. You didn't analyze it to death. You didn't think and think about it. You followed it. And of course, looking for feedback, which you had.
I also will say that it's not to say that I don't do that, because I'm human and I do find myself sometimes, especially in new situations, where I get into critical gatekeeping mode where I'm, oh, okay, I got this feedback. Is it, I don't know which way to go. And then you kind of almost feel paralyzed. Um, and, uh, and that is when we need to remember our Silva skills. And that's, that's when I have a lot of times when I find myself in stress modes, I will have, it's the most, it's not bizarre, but it's fun and funny. I will have a technique, an exercise flash through my mind, and uh and okay, that's what I have to do, and then I do it, and I find that things start to even out and reorganize. So I have also heard that from other students of mine, where we'll be talking and they'll tell a story and this was happening, and then all of a sudden this exercise came into my mind and I did it, and and got results. So
Key words, you did it. You did it. You took action. You followed your impression. And that's so important. what I also hear you saying, Amy, that we could all benefit from is you're managing your energy. The number one skill for all of us, if you truly want to take command of your life and not become victimized by the chaos or the stuff out there, because a lot of life events are not within our control, we need to manage our energy biologically, neurologically, and of course emotionally. Because if the chemistry changes and we're flooded with stress hormones like cortisol and others, it's hard to think clearly. We become reactive rather than responding to life. We don't think as clearly. We don't have access as well to our higher thinking functions. And so again, although you haven't mentioned that, what I keep hearing you saying is you're a practitioner. That's something I admire about you. You're a practitioner. And the daily meditation is important for all of us for whatever reason, just to boost the immune system and to keep manage our energy so that we stay in alignment with our values, with our purpose, our intention, and that we can move on and progress. Nobody's perfect. However, when you've got a growth mindset, like I hear you do, Amy, that's when you make progress. So thank you. How about can we shift a little bit? And Amy has three lovely children. They're actually they're students of mine. Amy, realizing that as mom, she loves her children dearly. They love her. I was just there with them. I did Silva Mastery, the graduate advanced program in Atlanta, and I was with all three. Two of them were in the seminar with us, and one will soon become a graduate. And I've often admired that because let's face it, children have a very different relationship with their mom or their dad than they will in a class. It's important that there's that boundary, if you will. And so Amy, being skillful and wise like that, has sent them to me. And I would say both Johnny and William have been, when they were in the class, my best students. I've always allowed between eight, as long as they really want to be there, 8 and 12-year-olds, which I agree is young, but if at least one parent or guardian is a Silva graduate, a practitioner, and they've done it already, and then they can sit with them in case they need help or coaching, and they really want to be there. So they've looked at some of the videos or read some things about it. They're the best student in the room. They hear more than they need, but it's anyway. So to go back to them, um, depending on your comfort, Amy, knowing a bit of their history, both Johnny and William, in this instance, who I know better than Kaylee, have had, when they were very young, some health challenges. And again, here you are as a mother navigating that and using the tools to stay centered and balanced to make better decisions. So could you expand on that a bit? Like what specifically did you do, what tools and uh, anything within your comfort about being a better parent to help your boys grow to become the young men that they are now?
I will say that being a parent um, is where I find that I can get caught up in that fear thinking, right? Because I want so much for their well being. And in the older two, um, their specific situations, we were in some um, unknown territory for quite a while. And even now, as they have grown and now they're teenagers, with, they don't always jump on board with mom and dad's thought processes. And so they're truly becoming and growing into their own person. I mean, they've always been their own person, but really, kind of started that separation, which is natural, and they're supposed to do that. However, when we find ourselves in those moments where we we want to know instantaneously what to do to make it better or what to do to guide them in the right direction, that is when I find that I am most in that critical gatekeeping mode and when I need to stay most relaxed. So I will say in this instance, that for both of them, mainly staying relaxed and relying on the fact that I have been practicing for so long. So I have all of these gathered points of reference with my intuition that I know, hey, it's going to work out. It is absolutely going to work out for the best. So trusting in that, and then relaxing, and then being open to what comes in, open to the possibilities. I have done a lot of long relax because I use it a lot of times for a reset when I'm stressed. And then mirror of the mind and holoviewing, and then also just just trusting the expectation, that expectation part, because I know it's going to work out. I'm going to get the information somehow, some way, and I know we're going to figure it out. So stay relaxed and stay open. So it's a lot more integrative at that point. And then also something actually you have mentioned several times to me, and there was one very specific instance that I used this where when we find that we are in that moment of either extreme joy, or in the cases where we're worried about our kids, just extreme, like bring you to your knees, like, help me, God, what can I do in that moment? Um, use visualization and imagination for what you want. And in so many cases, this one particular instance I'm thinking about, I was so worried and stressed, and uh, and and I remembered, and all I did was just I thought about that kiddo, and I just said, I love you, 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 and just imagined, just love and warmth, embracing him. Um, and then all of a sudden, it was probably over the next 2 or 3 days that I really noticed. It was very subtle. It wasn't a huge aha, but it was very subtle where what was going on kind of released. And we were able to have conversations, and things just organized and smoothed out. And so, it's really also knowing when we are the most open, and that we have tools we can use in those moments of extreme stress. And unfortunately, when we're stressed, that's when memory goes, right? So that's when practicing these tools come into play, because the more you practice them, then the more that they become automatic, so that when you are in stress mode, it's something that automatically comes up, and it's just skill and practice, which is why it's so important.
Excellent. So I heard you say that when you're getting stressed, and if the children, one of them or both of them, have a serious health challenge, uh, possibly life and death type challenge, which I think you've navigated, you stayed out of course, you're going to be afraid. Of course, there's going to be fear. Of course, there's going to be some worry. But if we let that consume us, we can't think, and then we give up. But instead, mentioning the long relax, it's a 30-minute, 28 to 30-minute exercise of deep fractional relaxation that Mr. Silva spent 22 years perfecting. And it's a cornerstone exercise that we use in the immersion of Silva Life and Intuition System that people love. And it's a good takeaway. If you're a Silva practitioner and you have that exercise, or if you become one and you learn it, so often people use it to help in recovering from surgery, to prepare for surgery, or if they're living with chronic pain, it works to help manage the pain. As instructors, one of the things that drives us is we hear countless examples of people. I also heard you, Amy, saying, so I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's a tool, specific tool to do, because how could you not worry? But the other thing is having some optimism that things would work out. If you look at the neuroscience piece of it, we now know based on thousands and thousands of brain scans by the work of Dr. Andrew Newberg and Mark Robert Waldman, who is his front man, happened to be friendly with Mark. They've researched how to improve the quality, the health of the brain to keep us, balanced and so on. And great book to read is, if you can expand on the image, it's back here, it's one of my favorites, How God Changes Your Brain. It's not about God, but it's about having faith. So we've all heard in personal development how important it is to change your limiting beliefs. And really what that's about is having the belief in yourself that somehow, some way, I'll figure things out, which is what Amy just said. Nobody has all the answers. But if we sit there worrying and worrying, woe is me, we victimize ourselves, we catastrophize, and it gets worse. So really important that we have notice though, she's using the tools, doing the long relax, applying what she knows, not just sitting back in blind faith. No, that doesn't really help us, or blind optimism. But true optimism is cultivated when we take action, we study, we learn, maybe we hire a coach, whatever it is that you do, we've got to feed our soul, feed our spirit, feed our brain to rewire those old patterns. And one other last thing about that belief in taking action, I have to just say this. Both of her boys were teenagers. We joke about teenagers. They both attended the advanced training with me recently, the end of April in Atlanta. And we have a little thing, and silver classes are intimate, anywhere from 20 to 40 to 50, and everyone's a VIP. Everyone gets the undivided attention of the instructor. Everyone is heard. Everyone's questions are answered immediately, not days, weeks, or months later, and by a certified instructor. So we invite them, okay, what have these 2 days meant to you? And and then there's a certificate of completion. And both of them brought Amy, if you don't mind me saying Amy, to tears. And I got a little teary-eyed too, because they were so genuine, so heartfelt. What it meant to them to be there, I felt good about that. But what it meant for them to be with you, to be part of you encouraging them, because what you're not saying is you've been guiding them and encouraging them to not try to change them. I'm sure you've attempted that sometimes.
Yeah,
I thought
I've attempted, but I know that that's not my place to do so, as hard as it is.
I joke about Barbara, who you know well, kicks me under the table because it's hard as a parent not to when you know what you know. And I've joked, I said, people pay me a lot of money for me to mentor them, and then my children don't even turn to me for advice. So I volunteer it, which is not so cool. I've learned the hard way. It's hard. However, so we're getting there, and we're not, neither of us are claiming to be perfect. Again, I invite you, come back to this, listen again, because if you listen closely, there's a lot of takeaways here. It's the little things, it's those new, slight nuances that is the difference that will make the difference. Anyone can read one of these books behind me, the Silva, excellent book by Silva Mind Control Method by Jose Silva and Philip Mealy, or the Business Manager's book, which is really about people managers, excellent tools. But a lot of people become consumers of knowledge. And Amy, um, what I've noticed about you is you consume a lot of knowledge and you apply it, you work with it, you integrate it, and that's why you're in the place that you're in, and that's why your children are a glowing example of you as a parent. And one last, no, I keep saying one last. Things keep. I'm sorry. I told you, folks. I warned you. When Amy and I get together, there's something about it. And I want to say, I don't know if I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. I have met hundreds of Silva instructors and all over the world. And you really, Amy, are a standout to me, which is why we're here now and why you and I have bonded, because you walk the talk, you live it, you apply it. You're humble. You don't claim to be perfect and look at me, a guru, whatever. You use it. You got skills, kiddo, and you apply it. And you ask me more questions than anybody. And I ask you questions and we go back and forth. That says a lot because I've met a lot of people, even unfortunately, some Silva instructors. I don't know what it is. Do they think they know it all? They've stopped asking questions, and I do not see them collaborating with other instructors, which is so important. But that's another topic. But Amy, you're the real deal. And what I wanted to ask you was a favorite tool for me is, like you said, Holoview. It's my go-to now. It's an advanced application of Mirror the Mind. We've attached it to this idea of guidance. Call it divine guidance, source guidance, but it's based on Jose Silva's advanced work that he only used to teach himself in his advanced trainings. And remember, there were four people in the world doing the advanced work: Jose Silva and myself. I was one of those four people. It was such an honor and a blessing. The laboratory. Laboratory and counseling is something unique. So, Amy, have you used the lab before having a delicate conversation with anyone in your family or who knows, before having one with me?
Oh my goodness. I am so happy you asked this question because, well, everything happens for a reason. Um, the laboratory and counselors um, are also one of the tools that I use regularly. And in fact, when I do Mirror of the Mind and when I do Holo Viewing, I get creative. Um, and I get creative and I do Mirror of the Mind and Holo Viewing in my lab. And the lab and counselors was one of those tools that when I learned it at 9, it just had such an impression on me. And it was it and it has been very easily the one that I have used the most over the years in conjunction with the others. And I bring everybody in there. I have conversations. I prepare for meetings. I prepare. It's just the one. I think the reason why I it slipped my mind to mention it before is because that is the one tool that is so automatic for me. Um, and I use it for everything, everything.
See, I told you when we get together, we're good for each other. We bounce off each other. There's something else you said too. Why I brought up the laboratory, and by the way, folks, admittedly, way back when I started in 71, we were labeled woo-woo and got sharp. Actually, it helped us because everybody was investigating Silva, we used to be called Silva Mind Control, but they were true journalists. They investigated, went through the course from beginning to end, and then wrote about their experiences and people in the classes with them. And it was so positive, we didn't even have to advertise. I mean, it really spoiled us because people were just searching for it. We were also the only game in town. But this thing of the laboratory, woo woo, I think it's okay. Mark Waldman, great guy. His writing is brilliant, does great work. He's a psychotherapist. And at one point, he was, as a friendly courtesy to me, helping to coach our instructors through myself how to be more science based. And there were things he told us to take out. And one of them, I think this is a conversation he and I had privately with Skype, is about the laboratory to mentally rehearse the conversation, the delicate conversation with somebody before you have it. And I got a big woo woo. And some years later, maybe, I don't recall exactly, it was at least 3 years later, when he had a Facebook page and he was active, he's teaching and encouraging people before you have a delicate conversation. We're now teaching in his psychotherapy sessions, mentally rehearse it. Close your eyes, relax, and imagine the person there with you as if they're there, which is what Amy and I are talking about. And it works before you go on an interview, before you have that delicate conversation, before you give a presentation. We fellow instructors, at least most I know who openly, before we do whatever we do, we first mentally rehearse the outcome, mentally rehearse the intention or things that maybe need to be improved. it makes a difference. This book, The Silva Mind Control Method for Business Managers. Let me see if I can little
One of my
product placement
favorites.
here by Jose Silva and Robert Stone. If you're a Silva graduate practitioner, you'll get tons of insight and tools to use. If you're new to this and you're open to it, same thing, just depends on your openness. Where this one, Silva Mind Control Method by Jose Silva and Philip Muir, so many people have read it, countless. It's been reprinted at least a dozen times or more, and it was written in the early 70s before that. But I want to go one more point, and then Amy, I think you're on the edge of your chair wanting to comment. Thank you for holding that thought. You said something that I wrote down. Well, two things. You're managing your inner dialogue. You're in fear mode. Who wouldn't be when your children have a threatening challenges or born with this or that, etc. I'm not going to go into details, but you manage your inner dialogue. We call it mental house cleaning. The way we speak to ourselves when we're in stress mode makes a huge difference because when we're in stress mode, we're vulnerable. When we're grieving, we're vulnerable. When we're elated and joyful, the shields drop and we make more impressions. It's that state of elevated emotion, positive or negative, where our thoughts are embedded and rewire. It's a program to the nervous system, to the brain. And so Amy's talking about, I'm just sending out love, sending out love, sending out love. The power of love. I've done similarly with our own children. When I throw up my hand and I'm exasperated, what can I do? And I came to the conclusion, all I can do is be the best possible parent I can be and shower him or her with love and be them. And it made a difference because who we are radiates out to the world. And if we're thinking vengeful thoughts towards somebody, no names mentioned, it's going on too much in America, in my opinion. If we have resentment toward people, if we're judging them and we've got those, even though we don't say it, they feel it. And they don't feel it consciously, but it affects your interaction. It affects your relationship. And that's what I heard Amy saying, because I've lived it myself. When we can come from a place of love, not woo-woo, but of respect and embrace them for who they are and observe who they are without judgment,
Mhm.
we're going to have a more meaningful conversation and we're more likely to help each other. I see Amy smiling and I just saw a pic. Amy, am I accurately assessing? You don't realize how wise you are. You've just been so full of takeaways that I wanted to just clearly put them out there for people.
Well, that's absolutely accurate. I think that as I have gotten older and um, you know, really get to look back on how I've used the tools and what they mean for me now, and look back at the gift that my mom gave out of, I mean, really, she gave the gift of Silva to me out of a um a not survival security, but I mean in a way of, hey, I just learned this and I want you to just not, take the shortcut. I'm putting you in it. And one of the things that actually stood out the most for me, I was 9, but I have vivid recollections of that class. And um, and one of the very specific recollections I have is using my laboratory. I think that's why I love it so much. Using my laboratory to send love and healing thoughts to my grandfather at the time, who was ill. He has since passed a very long time ago. But I remember thinking, wow, I can help. Little old me, 9 years old, here's something I can do. So when we talk about take action, we absolutely have to take action, with talking to people and using all of our physical senses, how we normally take action during the day, but also the taking action of being intentional about our thoughts and being on the lookout for answers. That's also action as well. And so I remember that so clearly. And that is one of the ways that has kept me out of stress mode because when I find myself in those different situations, I know because I've it's helped so many times over so many years that when I use this tool, no matter what tool it is, one, it helps me just chill out. It helps me relax. It helps me just release the worry or at least turn down the worry. And then being on the lookout for answers. And I think that's the most important is that we're all connected. We get this information. I know I've been in your class. It happens in your class. It happens in my class that when we ask, hey, have you ever had that time where you thought about someone and they called, or you were thinking about solving a problem and all of a sudden you have a conversation with someone or something happens, a meaningful coincidence where it's got information for you. And everyone, I have yet to have someone not raise their hand, raises their hand. And that's it's why I do this work is honing in on that intuition, honing in on knowing that somehow, some way we can figure it out. That is, we all have that. We all have it. And this structure of the Silva method helps us be intentional about knowing how we can be on the lookout, knowing what that feeling feels like, knowing what that image looks like. And it's not it's not something that we don't have. We all have it. And once we're aware of it, then we can use it for so many possibilities and mostly to stay out of stress, stay out of worry, and be able to be more of our loving, gracious selves to the world.
Wow, thank you. It's beautiful. We could go on and just one thing about the laboratory. If you're new to the Silva method, you haven't read any of the books or been in the class, the laboratory, it sounds sciencey. Well, when Mr. Silva started in 44, he was sharply criticized. He was called the psychoceramic. That's a fancy word for crackpot. So he did his best to be a science-based, and so a lot it filtered, it biased him in a sense, in a positive way, in the names of the tools and techniques so they would come across. So that was his intention by design. The laboratory means different things to people. It could be your happy place, your ideal place of relaxation, your own inner sanctum, your own place that you have control of. You're creating your own inner environment where you're comfortable and at ease and trusting. And when you're comfortable, at ease, and trusting, that's when the magic happens. So it's a phenomenal tool that one day hopefully you'll learn. So Amy, my friend, you have any closing thoughts? Because I think it's probably time that we wrap up. We could go on, and we'll have to do it again. But any closing thoughts that you'd like to add?
Well, I stopped myself from going on a few minutes ago because as I just I just I love the structure so much, and it makes anything possible. And I just want everyone to know exactly what my mom told me when I was 9, and that is that you are in control of your mind. And I know that that is at the very core of why Jose Silva created what he created. I know in his in the blue book, the Silva Method of Mind Control, he talks about a story in there where someone comes up and says, oh, you helped me do this, you did this, you, and he said, I didn't do it, you did it. And that's generalizing the story, but it's in there. um And and I think that when we are truly aware that we are in control of our choices, that we are in control of our actions, and that we have a choice of what to think and how to think, and that there are infinite possibilities and infinite solutions to our challenges and our problems that come up, then we, we can change the world. And um, it's just that important. And when we do it, we then leave a legacy for those that come after us. We leave a better world for those who follow. And I truly believe that. And that theme of legacy has come up for me over and over, especially over this past year, and just really opening my mind to exactly what that means and how we can help others. Because sometimes, especially in this world that we're in now, um, sometimes we might get caught up in the stress and how can I help? How can I change something? And we we can change by changing our energy, by changing the way we look at things. And then when we do that, it radiates out and it just becomes automatic.
Thank you. Amy, how can people, folks, if you're resonating and you want to explore more about the Silva Method, how can they find you, Amy? What would be the best place where they could learn more about what you offer in Western North Carolina and Atlanta area?
So my website, which is www.silvamethodatlanta.com. And you can also find me on Instagram, which is Silva Method Atlanta and Western NC. Kind of a long one. But I do also have it on my website too, so you could just go over there and then you can follow me from there if you wanted to.
It's kind of funny. Same for myself, silvermethodct.com. And actually, if you just search Silva Method Atlanta, Silva Method Connecticut, Boston, or Chicago, you'll find us, our websites. Consider investigating more. If you have yet to experience the real deal, the coursework, there's a lot of things out there. They're great. They're good introductions at best, whether it be Mind Valley's 12 hours of pre-recorded videos, good work, but it's not the course, not even close to the course. And in fact, there's things in there that are not actually what we teach. Silva training is not 1 day, not 2 days, not three. It's 4 days, 40 hours of training. Usually we go from 9 in the morning to 7. Occasionally we do it virtually, but best way is in person. If that resonates with you, I invite you to check it out. Subscribe to her YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, somewhere where there's a link here. We're both on social media actively. It would be an honor to meet you folks. And I want to say, Amy, thank you for making the time. Amy is a wife, is a mother of three young, energetic, and I mean energetic children. She also plays chauffeur for the children. She works in wellness. She works as consulting people as a doula, and she's a full-time Silva instructor. So you really are a living example of navigating life in a healthy, balanced way. And those of you listening, thank you for being here. We look forward to more. And Amy, appreciate you always. I'm going to sign off in a moment.
Thank
You're
you
going to
so
say one
much.
more last parting thought.
Just thank you. I have so much gratitude for you and for our students and for those who are just on their self-growth journey.
Okay. So I'm going to stop the recording, folks, and this will be continued. We hope to do more. I sincerely hope this is serving you in the community, especially if you're a Silva practitioner. A lot of gems in here, takeaways. Until the next time, may the rest of your life be the best of your life. Those are words from Jose Silva.